Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 251 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices, and I do appreciate you making my podcast one of them. If you are enjoying this podcast, then I would love for you to take a screenshot or a selfie of you listening to it and share it on your socials and tag me. Be super cool to be able to follow your business journey, just like you're perhaps following mine by listening into this podcast. Of course, you can find the show notes for this particular podcast episode at all the W's, socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/251. Did you have a chance to listen to last week's episode? Last week, I had Erin Huckle from Chuckle Communications on the podcast talking to us about building your profile. It was such a great chat. Erin is so amazing at her job. And so if you didn't get a chance to listen to that one, then after you finished here, head back there and have a bit of a listen to my chat with Erin all around building your profile. Yes, your profile, not your business profile, your profile. I wanted to give a shout out to this week's podcast sponsor. Thank you so much, Kate Toon, for sponsoring this podcast, as you have done for several weeks. Take it away. I'll let you say what you need to say about sponsorship for today.
Hi, Kate Toon here, just jumping into Jen's podcast to tell you about my new book, Six Figures in School Hours: How to Run a Successful Business and Still Be a Good Parent. It's packed with practical and doable tips for parents to be more productive, make serious money, and not burn themselves to a frazzle in the process, with actionable advice and inspiring stories to help you create a successful business and never feel like the worst parent in the world ever again. Order today at sixfiguresinSchoolhours.com.
As a marketing consultant, you can only probably imagine how many conversations I have about content. Creating content is one of the biggest challenges small business owners have. And in fact, in my 2022 small business survey that I did with 4 other amazing marketers and thought leaders in Australia, we found that over 53% of people said that coming up with engaging copy was one of the biggest challenges in business. That's over half the people surveyed. So today I thought I would give you 3 tips for creating more content when you've run out of content. How do you produce more content when you feel the content well is dry? Okay, so the first one is remember that content is everything. Now, I know that might sound like a bit of a cop-out tip, but it's true. Content is everything. Everything is content. Your morning routine is content. Your afternoon routine, your evening routine is content. The way you produce tiles in Canva is content. The question you answered in that Facebook group last night is content. The fact that you're struggling to produce content is content as well. Basically, if you're feeling it, doing it, thinking about it, then there's every chance that your community wants to know about it. Maybe they're thinking it, feeling it, and they would love that connection with you. So start taking notice of things that happen during the day, questions you are answering, conversations that you're having, things that you do each day to make your life simpler or easier, or maybe even the things that you do that are making your life harder. And if you share them with your community, someone might have a really cool solution for you. If you start looking at the world through it, everything is content lens, then coming up with content will get easier. You will be able to keep that content bucket full. My second tip is repurpose, repurpose, repurpose. If you are running out of content, then look back over the content you've already produced and repurpose it. You might need to change a few things for sure, maybe update the content a little depending on the subject, but you really already have so much content available to you You just need to think about how you could spin that same content again. Repurposing content is my jam. I am always repurposing content. I have a virtual assistant, and basically, their entire job is to repurpose content that I produce, like this podcast. I repurpose content around my speaking pillars, around my book a call with me pillars. I'm always repurposing a good testimonial. So make your content life purpose to repurpose content. Repurpose content that you've already done. Go back and have a look what you did 6 months ago, 12 months ago, or even longer. And how can you bring that back to life? Repurposing content is really one of the biggest, I guess, answers I can give to you when you say, my content well is dry. Jen, what am I going to do? I'm going to say to you those three words: repurpose, repurpose, repurpose. The third tip I wanted to give you today was one that actually comes from my book coach. So you may or may not know, if you have listened to this podcast or following me on social, I'm currently in the middle of writing a book. By the time this episode goes live, I should have been three-quarters of the way through my second draft of the book and then be looking at all the fun bits that come after that. But I'm writing a marketing book, surprisingly enough. And so my book coach said to me, this point, I guess, tell more stories. So if you're running out of content, or from a book point of view, if you need more words, tell more stories. Stories are how we are memorable. Stories are how we are relatable. And stories are how we get our messages remembered. Stories are one of the most powerful marketing strategies you can actually employ in your business. And we all have stories. We all have loads of stories. We just sometimes fail to see how they can be business related. But believe in me, they can. The art of segue is what you need to learn. So, a super simple story segue can be, and forgive my really bad summarization of this particular story, but hopefully you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. But it's basically, I climbed Mount Everest. Bad things happened to me. I never gave up. And the moral of the story is, when bad things happen in business, never give up. I know it's a horrible, really quick story. I know. But you do get the gist of what I'm trying to say, yes. Just because it's not a business story doesn't mean it can't be segued into a business lesson for us all. And once you really grasp that segue storytelling, you can do it all the time. And if you look or you listen very carefully to my marketing, you'll see that I do it everywhere. I have really embraced the art of segue storytelling. Um, and I love storytelling. And again, it's the way of being relatable. It's the way we can be remembered. Our ancestors have used stories to help us remember the past for years and years and years. So we are just taking that into a marketing principle. So if you are running out of content, if your content well is dry or is running dry, tell more stories. So there's three tips on how I can perhaps help you out if you're running out of content. We all get to the stage of thinking, I have nothing left in the tank. And I have to say, after 251 episodes of this podcast, I actually think this quite often, maybe even once a week. What could I possibly talk about that I haven't already? Who could I possibly interview that I haven't already? Um, you know, it's just the way, I'm constantly thinking about content for my podcast. I do it every single week. I've got to come up with a different topic every single week. So I get that it's easy to think you are running out of content, but if you follow those three principles of, remembering that everything is content, repurposing your content, and telling stories, then you'll perhaps never run out of content. And I have to say that I have podcast episodes planned up to the end of September. So the podcast is going to go till at least then. When I actually think that I'm empty for content, I actually sit down and give myself the space to come up with ideas. I also keep a story and an ideas diary. And this is what I look at when I get the content blues as such. Now, P.S. my content idea or my content diary isn't as sophisticated as it sounds. It's really two things. It's the notes in my phone that is full of jumbled words and jumbled sentences that only make sense to me, but they are my ideas, they are my stories. And the other one sits in my office. It's actually my whiteboard that sits above my desk in my office that I'm constantly looking at, changing, rubbing off things, taking ideas, all those little bits of paper that I have around my desk. I put them into my content diary. So depending on where I am, it's either my phone or my whiteboard. So calling it a content diary probably makes it sound a bit more sophisticated than what it is, but it's record keeping. And that's what I would really encourage you to do is, start keeping some records of those little bites of gold that come to you at the most inconvenient times and write them down so you don't forget them. So I hope this episode has helped. Content is really everywhere. And if you learn to repurpose and tell more stories, content should never be too far away for you. Um, Maybe you've got some tips around how you create content for your business. I would love to hear about them. And I would love you to come and hang out in my Like Minded Business Owners Facebook group and maybe even start a thread in there and share your wisdom with everyone about how you continue to create content. Or if you've got questions about creating content, ask them in there, tag me, and we'll have a bit of a chat about that. Of course, if you want to talk to me specifically around content creation, content pillars, and strategy, make a discovery call with me. The link is in the show notes, or you can just go to my website at allthewsocialmediaandmarketing.com.au and book a discovery call through there. But that's it for episode 251. I hope you loved this episode and found it valuable. Hopefully, it's helped you rethink your content. If so, I'd love for you to take 30 seconds out of your day and leave me a rating or a review wherever it is that you're listening to this. Because one of the goals of mine, which I mentioned most weeks, is to reach more people with this podcast. And you can help me achieve that by leaving me a review. Thank you so much in advance for that. I will see you next week for episode 252. I've got a great guest next week. But thanks again to Kate Toon for sponsoring this week's podcast episode. Please go and check out her new book, 6 Figures in School Hours. You can get the link in the show notes or go to katetoon.com and you will find it there as well. But in the meantime, let's hang out on social if we're not already. And whatever you do, remember my small business peep. As my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it. Say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.